It was late. City lights were flickering. Rain was tapping on the window like it had something to confess. Of course, I was burning the midnight oil, chasing another case that looked too obvious. Back pain. The usual suspect. Loud, dramatic, very convincing. The kind of suspect that leans back in the chair and says, yeah, I did it. But something didn't sit right. The hips were acting shady, the glutes had no alibi, the core, well, the core disappeared the second things got difficult. And the nervous system, well, that thing was guarding the scene like it had buried the evidence in the back alley. So I kept digging. Because pain is real, but pain does not always tell the whole truth. And the more I followed the clues, the more I started to wonder. What if the back wasn't the source? What if it was the fall guy? The symptom? If I was right, well, then the real culprit was still out there. So I did what any good detective would do who always finds his man. I poured another cup of coffee, I put the back pain under the hot lamp, and I started asking questions nobody else was willing to ask. Because that's what we do here, we investigate. And you'll never believe what we discover. I don't know who approved the detective theme, but I'm all in. And I call dibs on Columbo.
Whoa. If you get to be Columbo, then that means I get to be Sherlock Holmes, all right? And honestly, back pain deserves an investigation theme. If back pain does, it shows up loud, it shows up dramatic, and it shows up guilty. So that requires a couple of the right detectives on the job for that.
Well, you're perfect for Sherlock Holmes, but that's how it gets you, right? It points at the low back and says, yep, it was me. And most people believe it.
Which is why they keep stretching the same spot, rubbing the same area, and blaming the same structure.
And meanwhile, the hips are in the corner acting suspicious.
The glutes are missing.
The core deleted its location.
And the nervous system is guarding the whole scene for them.
So today, we're not just asking where it hurts.
We're asking what's actually driving it.
Because let's face it, pain is definitely real.
Yeah, it's real, but it doesn't always tell you the whole truth.
And then, so listen, that's the case today. Your back pain might not be the criminal. Truly, it just might be the fall guy.
Yep. And we're going to follow the clues.
All right. Before we start accusing everybody, Mason, of everyone's spine of organized crime, what do you say we just kick off the Tech Talks right now?
Let's do it.
No fluff, no filters, just real talk, real tech, and real outcomes. So lock in, turn it up, and let's get after it. This is Tech Talks. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to NerveOTX Tech Talks, where we break down direct current, performance, recovery, and all the stuff your nervous system probably wishes you understood sooner. I'm Jake, Director of Training here at NerveOTX, and as always, I'm joined by Mason, our head athletic trainer, protocol nerd, and the guy who keeps this show from turning into a full-blown electrical crime documentary. Each week, we're taking real questions and real scenarios, real training concepts, and making them simple enough to actually use. So whether you're a doctor, provider, athlete, coach, weekend warrior, or you're just trying to figure out why your back went out trying to tie your shoe and it looked like you were attempting to do a max deadlift as a result, then this show's probably for you. And if you're watching live, drop your questions in the chat. Tell us where you're watching from, what kind of back issue you're dealing with, and whether your back pain is whispering or yelling or currently holding you personally hostage. Today, we're talking about your back pain and why it might be a liar. Not fake, not imaginary, but look, not all in your head either. Maybe just not telling the whole story, because back pain, it gets your attention. It doesn't always give you the full investigation, though. So today, we're going to look past the obvious suspect, follow the clues, and figure out why the low back often takes the blame and when something else usually might be driving the main problem. Mason, welcome back. And is your magnifying glass polished up and ready for inspection? Because we got some research to do.
I've always got it ready to go. And with my magnifying glass, I also brought a little bit of anatomy, a little bit of movement, and just enough skepticism to get us through.
Perfect. Like always, I brought sarcasm, direct current, and a suspicious amount of self-confidence.
Yeah, that tracks exactly with the Jake that I know. So let's go ahead. Let's open up this case file. Let's get into the stake of the things.
Let's go. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you for joining in live, those who are, and make sure you're leaving your comments below because we will answer those. We'll try to get to as many as we can today. And before we dig in, Mason, good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. Very excited for this episode. This episode is going to hit home for, I think, a lot of people. So I know since we started talking about Tech Talks as a whole, we've been really ready to do this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's kick it off right away. We're talking about the big lie. Is it a lie? What's the deal here? We're placing it as a crime scene. The back is constantly a problem, but not always the problem. Is that correct?
Yeah, I dare to say more often than not, it can relate to something outside of where that pain's exemplifying along that vertebral column or along that spine. And so that's kind of what we're going to dive into here today is what are those other options or what can it be and how do we counteract it?
Mm-hmm. And before we dig too deep into it, there's a doctor that I've had tremendous amount of respect for years, especially being able to work with direct current the way he has for years. I consider him one of the best in the world at using direct current as a doctor. He's going to give a little insight of what he does in finding some of the sources of the problem for low back pain. He talks about that. So yeah, go ahead and check him out right here.
Lower back pain. And I'm not denying that that's where they're suffering, but a lot of times, based off of a scan or a weakness somewhere, it's someplace further down the chain, right? Like a VMO or an adductor or a previous hamstring injury that now is not firing properly, has scar tissue in it, maybe has some tears from the past, or maybe something is acute, and you damage or you have a strain of the hamstring, and then that leads you to overuse the spine. And so that's what's important about the scan is you can find out where you're breaking down, where there's scar tissue, where there's adhesions that's forcing you to use too much of the spine when you go to lift something or move. So that's why, it's important to use that scan and not just address the symptom of lower back pain. I've seen it far away as a tibialis anterior, in a VMO leading to lower back pain.
Wow. So to give an insight just quickly, Mason, could you on your mannequin, he talked about he sees breakdowns with tibialis anterior in VMO. Would you mind just kind of showing us with your mannequin? Let's get him to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see that breakdown.
Yeah. So VMO is the first one that Dr. Sam had kind of mentioned. And your VMO is going to be, I've got my microphone blocking it. Your VMO is going to be right here on the inside of the knee, medial portion of the knee. It's what we call the teardrop muscle because it looks very similar to what a teardrop will look like, whether it's contracted or whether it's sitting there dormant. But it's a muscle that a lot of people try to target and try to get activated. However, it's one of the toughest muscles to activate within the system because you have so many other bigger quad muscles around this area that want to pick up that slack. And so they do that. And then the other one he had mentioned is the tibialis anterior. And that one, try to move my mic here, it's going to start on the outside of the knee. I move my mic right to block it. It's going to start on the outside of the knee here. Towards the superior portion of the knee or the upper portion of the knee, and it runs down and around to the inside portion of the ankle there. It helps with extending the toes and the feet, but you can also see if there's a lack of activation with the tibialis anterior, it's going to work its way up the chain. I'm glad Dr. Sam was the first one to use that word in today's episode because I'll use it copious amounts of time throughout today. But that's really what it's all about is these connections that happen up and throughout the body and how they can pull or tug and create imbalances.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. It's still hard for a lot of people to comprehend that here's my pain. Why are you treating or looking into something over here and over here when you're talking to your clinician? But this is where a lot of that technology is coming from. And, somebody like Dr. Sam Battaglia is able to use the direct current and sniff out some of those breakdowns. And sometimes we find them there, which could lead to kind of interesting places that help the low back if you fix them.
Yeah. Because if your muscles aren't firing, or if they tend to tighten up from a compensation that may be happening, it's going to throw the entire system off. It's not just located to that one area. That's why a lot of times you'll see clinicians that, especially if they're using direct current, they're going outside of where that pain area is. And that just comes back to the premise of what we're working with here. It's working to not just find where the pain is, but where the root of the pain is generating at.
All right. It's time to put the investigator hats on and get ready to strap in on Mason. You're the Sherlock here. Who are your suspects? Let's break this down.
Yeah, we've got 4 of them here, 4 main ones. That doesn't mean that they could be the only ones, but these are the ones that we more often than not start to point our finger towards based on what we know and what we've seen. And that's going to be the glutes, the core, the hamstrings, and the adductors. They all relate to why the low back ends up being the fall guy.
Gotcha. Boy, I don't know. We're going through, like, I've experienced a lot of low back pain. I'm looking at that. There's at least 2 on the list that I literally went through: the glutes and hamstrings for sure. Hamstrings were tight, glutes weren't firing up. And that created some of it. Hips were also involved in that as well.
Well, and would you say, I mean, your pain was kind of exemplifying itself in the hip region as well as the low back region too?
It was. In fact, it actually started with the hip and then it started to kind of go to the low back. My idea is the breakdown muscles of glute med were starting to just kind of wear and tear, and the back started taking the pressure over because the hip wasn't, getting absorbed properly by the glute med. That was my theory. Right. And we started to fire up the glute med and started doing things with the water bath that we'll get into. And like I said, now I'm running, and I wasn't running years ago. Kind of getting into these case files. Here's another video we want to talk about. Someone who uses the newbie technology, going into the same kind of premise that the low back isn't always the problem, that there's probably some other symptoms within the low back created by things away from it. Meet some of those suspects right here.
Even the smallest dysfunction can throw off performance. For golfers, low back pain is common, but it's often the symptom, not the cause. This professional golfer dealt with chronic low back pain and rotational stiffness, limiting both power and accuracy. Manual treatments and stretching brought short-term relief, but swing mechanics still suffered. We shifted focus to a neuromuscular activation and stability approach using the newbie. With the newbie, we stimulated key areas like the glutes, obliques, and deep core muscles, then pair that with swing-specific drills to reinforce proper hip mobility and spinal control. Within weeks, his pain decreased, rotation improved, and he returned to competition with greater ease and power, without compensations holding him back.
I mean, it's creative in the sense that, the low back likes to, maybe sort of misdirect people and say, hey, I'm the problem. So it gets all the attention. But in reality, she said often, not, it's not always. Sometimes the low back actually might be a problem, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And that's not what I'm glad you brought that point up, Jake. And Dr. Salmon kind of mentioned that too, is we're not saying that there's not an issue going on with the low back, because there usually is some sort of physiological issue there, whether it's a disc herniation, it's spinal stenosis, it's a spondy going on there. So we're not necessarily saying that there's not an issue present there, but what we are saying is that it didn't generate there a lot of the times. It didn't start there, or we didn't get there by just the back breaking down on its own. We got there because of certain muscles not activating, different movements getting compensated, which has caused us to shut down certain muscles. And that means other muscles are taking over a brunt of that slack that's getting left by these other ones. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, we're not saying there aren't issues in the low back, because MRIs, x-rays will.
Okay, sorry about that. That was interesting. Mason, here's what I think. I think, because we had such good detective work, they didn't want us to kind of share the truth. And what perfect timing to bring this back up, since we're going to force the truth on them anyway, is we're going to continue to dive in to our investigation. Thank you for everyone still hanging in there. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Not sure what happened there.
I was a little concerned there too. I kind of, just as we started to talk about all these different suspects, you had kind of fell out there. And as we were working through it, I kind of was concerned you got held hostage there for a little bit on your own by all of our usual suspects. So is there anything you can tell us about the adductors or the core, kind of doing a little bit of investigative work on yourself there?
For the most part, maybe it's just the core work. I don't know. Not sure why they wanted me off, but we're gonna press on with it. And Mason, you were kind of leaning into the point where some of these might be problem points. Can you break down these case files here where we have pad placements using direct current therapy to activate these locations? Let's start with the glutes. Case file number 1.
Glutes, really, the main thing with the glutes is the fact that they're responsible for hip flexion, hip extension. They play a huge role in that. So when you think of even just standing up straight and bending over at the hips to go to touch your toes, your glutes are very, very involved with that. As you're bending over and you're working your way down, your glutes are going through an eccentric phase as they start to lengthen, and they have to hold that stability as you go down so you don't just flop right over. And then as you start to stand back up and they contract, they're going through a concentric phase where those muscles are shortening, tightening up to pull you back up into that position that you started at. So if those glutes aren't firing, you have to think as you bend over at the hip, what's going to take the brunt of it? Usually it's going to be the spine itself or the supporting structures around the spine, like the QL, piriformis. All of those support that area. And so they start to feel the force that the glute isn't picking up.
Kind of like a lazy glute.
Yeah, a little bit like a lazy glute. And if one of them isn't firing or all three of them aren't firing, then that's where you start to run into those issues where you start to get pain in the low back. You can start to get physiological changes then as the spine starts to move out of line and push on those discs, make them bulge.
What a pain in the gluteus maximus decimus meridius, commander of the Roman army. I'm getting two things mixed up. I'm so sorry. That was just something different.
I thought you were going to start name dropping all of the glute brothers there. Glute minimus, glute maximus, glute medius. We all know about Maximus, though. He's usually the one at the forefront of all of these crimes that we have going on here.
Could be the reason why there were some technical issues, and we'll move on with that. Let's bypass the glute for now because it's not the only suspect that we're investigating. You mentioned the core, and as you can see here, we have the black leads or the negative leads on a direct current system, and the red going below. So black above on the core, red below. What's the breakdown here? Can you explain why something like this might be an issue of maybe some possible back pain, and why something like this would help relieve some pain?
Yeah, the core and the trunk they're responsible for a lot of your stability throughout your entire body, throughout your system. Your feet and your legs are your foundation, but then up above that, you have your core that helps keep you balanced, helps make sure that you're able to perform all of your movements, and all of your limbs connect to the core too. So when you think about all the movements you go through throughout a day, lifting your arms, walking, taking a step, crouching down, your core muscles are activating and firing to help make sure you stay stable and you stay balanced as you go through your day-to-day motions. And if they're not picking up the slack, if they're not doing the job, then again, the low back becomes the fall guy because it's right there on the other side of your core. It might be right next to it when we're thinking about the obliques. And when we're talking about the obliques, people, it's not that they choose not to, but they're just a harder area to exercise and work out. And so if the obliques, they're not picking up their portion of the job, somebody else has to, whether it be the abdominal muscles or whether it be the spine and all the supporting structures around that.
So what you're saying is perhaps investigating the core here, they're the ones taking the gut check.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Jake. That's a good one. I like that.
I'm going to pepper everyone with bad dad jokes to kind of distract from the technical issues that we've had. Moving on. Case file number 3, hamstring adductors. Okay. So here's another one we kind of talk through. What's the deal here? How come hamstring could be related to low back?
This is where we circle back to what Dr. Sam was saying a little bit earlier about the chain. And I'll even take it a step further. It's the posterior kinetic chain that plays a huge role in the hamstrings mainly, but also the adductors as well. When we're thinking about that posterior kinetic chain, again, your body is all connected and intertwined with each other through your muscular network, through your fascial system, through your circulatory system, through your nervous system. All of those things are intertwined and connected. So if, let's say, the hamstrings start to get tight, well, what do the hamstrings connect to? They connect into the glutes, which we've talked about in case file number 1 there with the glute brothers, as we mentioned. And so if the hamstrings and adductors start to get tight and they pull on the glute muscles start to pull on the pelvis, inevitably we start to get pain in the low back area because our hips, our pelvis are offline because of those muscular imbalances. When we talk about the adductors, same thing. The adductors all originate on the top portion of your pelvic girdle. So if they're too tight or if they're not activating right, we get pelvic tilts that it's just not natural to the body and it causes pain.
That was beautifully broken down, Mason. Thank you. And I will say, my brain just keeps going back to the glute brothers as that main suspect. And I know it could be any of them, but for whatever reason, that one just seems a little sus, as the kids say. I should probably never say it like that again, should I?
Yeah, I don't know. It might not have been my favorite, but I think you're spot on. It usually is the glute brothers. The glute med. If you've ever had a call with me or Jake, you hear us talk about the gluteus medius so much. It sits right on top of the hip on the outside. If it doesn't fire, you're not getting rotation like you want or flexion like you want. And then big old glute max takes over for it. And that's where we start to get those compensations through our movement patterns. So yeah, more often than not, that's the first place that I'm usually checking. And then we can kind of work our way through the rest of the evidence, through the rest of the story, if it isn't the glute brothers, and try to tie down who our real suspect is.
And one more thing to kind of tie into these pad placements. And then again, the beauty of what direct current can do to go through what you said, the movement patterns, that's truly the magic behind this type of technology, is that you can actually do movement with it. And that helps expedite a lot of the process. Here's some examples here. Mason, why don't you talk through these movements and what they're doing for low back here?
This is the movement that I've kind of been explaining today through today's episode. You're standing straight, you're flexing at the hips, and you're bending down. He's doing it there too with that deadlift. But really, as you can see this kinetic chain that's along the backside, think if they're going through that movement and his hamstrings are tight, he's probably not going to be able to get as much range of motion because it pulls on the glutes. The glutes are directly related to the low back. So this is a great example of how we can, before and after, get more ranges of motion, especially those end ranges of motion, because of introducing this direct current, this stimulus to those muscles, to those tissues.
And one of the things I love about what these two doctors are doing, I actually do this myself as well to help loosen my lower back. When you look at where he's at here, I'll pause this. As you can see, he's got dumbbells in his hands. I love how he's using the weight to help some of that stretch while he's getting some of that muscle activation using that direct current. Looks like he's using an RX 100 in that case. Or maybe that one's a newbie. This one's an RX 100. Point is, they're both direct current and they're both able to do basically the same thing with that movement, activating what you were talking about, Mason.
Yeah. Activate and also help if there's any sort of tensions there, especially at low output powers. We can kind of loosen up some of those tensions that may be going on. And I know, Jake, you've seen it. I've seen it myself, where we meet with somebody and they can maybe get 60 degrees of hip flexion, 40 degrees of hip flexion. We put the device on, introduce that direct current to them. All of a sudden, their palms flat on the floor, and everybody's jaws are also on the floor with those palms as well. But it's exactly what we've seen time and time again. As you turn that current on, you introduce that stimulus, and you can get some really, really major gains on those end ranges of motion that you couldn't without it.
And it's not uncommon either. That's the thing that kind of continues to, like you said, it continues to surprise even us, where just in that first session, we're seeing some of those increases of range of motion right away. And we'll get to some more of those examples. There's another one we want to talk about, one final thing in all of this, and it's the reset. And it makes us to go back to reference the episode 2, where we put electricity in the water. If you haven't had a chance to check that one out, you're going to find a lot of benefits in that. But Mason, are we really putting electricity in water, or did we just say that as a way of building up some viral activity?
Trying to loop some people in. So let's see what these two crazy guys are doing. No, that's not exactly what we were doing. We are crazy, and we'll stick by that. But not in this sense. It's crazy the results that we see with doing this. And if you've been keeping up with episodes, if you have sessions with us, you're probably thinking to yourself, like, man, these guys are just addicted to this foot bath. This is all they talk about. But it's because of how applicable it is to so many different things, and then the results that we've seen with it. I mean, I won't speak for you, Jake, but myself, I use the foot bath protocol for low back pain anywhere between 2 to 3 times a week here at home. And it works wonders for me. Because we're just using that water as a magnifier, as you know from episode 2. We're pulling that current up through the base of the body, the foundation, feet, ankles, and legs. And if you've got those red leads, those red pads on the low back, the glutes, the hips, that's where it's going to deliver to, is in that area. We can start to relieve some of that back pain because we're helping support the muscles around that area.
And you're right. I actually use this quite a bit as well. There was a while when I was really working on the hip, I was doing it every day. And
Right.
it's truly how some of the water bath stuff came to fruition. And we kind of grew on that. We started to realize how much the water actually plays a big part in, expediting the process of what the direct current does. Along with this, I want to give one more example. We talked about range of motion. Here's another one. This is a massage therapist kind of using direct current. Goes through the same thing, as you can see, using some resistance bands on this as she's going through movements. Key takeaway here is this process. I mean, I want to stop here. This is a very common response that we see. Now, the before picture, that's an extreme case, wouldn't you say, Mason?
Yeah, definitely. So this is kind of what we were talking through earlier, is looking at where their range of motion is before and after. But yeah, that first picture, definitely an extreme case of just a lack of range of motion in that hip.
But not uncommon to get down and see that range change. We have several pictures of that, and this is after one session that you're seeing this range of motion really improve.
Yeah, they must have cropped out the jaws on the floor along with her fingers there too, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is look at just one session, the relief that it brings to that entire posterior chain, and I've got to imagine some relief that it brings to that patient as well.
Yeah, jaw dropping, extreme case file. I wouldn't say, Mason, that this is case closed, but we covered a lot where at least the back is not the only suspect for low back pain now. Wouldn't you say that's fair?
I think we've kind of unpacked the fact that it usually isn't the back, but the back just kind of sits there and doesn't necessarily keep his mouth shut because he's usually screaming at us, but he sits there and he takes all the questions, all the peppering from the investigators while everybody else kind of runs off scot-free. But we're trying to bring some exposure to who the real issue is here.
Before Mason starts drawing a crime scene diagram for the pelvis, we want to bring you guys in, all of you joining live. Thanks for being there. Thank you for your patience, your questions, your scenarios, and hopefully zero subpoenas from the low back. It's time for a little segment we like to call Current Check.
Current Check, let's go. Questions live, now we're in the flow. We bring the spark, we bring the tech talks live. It's the Current Check.
All right, here's your opportunity. Questions coming in. You have a live opportunity to talk about anything low back. We have a few, and also we are trying to stump our trainer here. We are trying to stump Mason. He's undefeated. We need some questions here. I have a little warm-up question for you here, Mason.
All right.
This is from JRN OI6BF. Thank you for having a very cool name there. You must be an Elon Musk guy. Good for you. Maybe you're one of his sons. I love it. What if I had a bulging disc? Is that still because of another muscle weakness somewhere else? Love these tech talks. Thank you for the love. Love your name. Mason, what do you think?
I mean, we're not going to throw any diagnoses out here today, but if you've had a bulging disc, it usually can be attributed to muscle weaknesses within, again, whether it could be the low back. That's one thing that we want to reiterate, is that we have all of these suspects here that we've talked about today that can contribute to it. But there can also be some muscular weakness in your low back muscles, such as your QL, your piriformis. So we're not saying that those muscles won't contribute, but there are other factors that lead into it. What it could be from is if that QL, that piriformis, or any of those other surrounding structures start to have a lack of activation, they're not picking up that slack, then your spine overall starts to take the brunt of that force. And as your spine doesn't move correctly, it starts to move out of line. That's when you can start to get those disc bulgings, because it pushes that disc out essentially.
Do you know we have Chris Hart here?
Chris is here. I told him this was going to be a good episode to listen into.
Got to give him a shout out, because he said my favorite words, foot bath is my go-to for everything. And quite frankly, from neck all the way down to feet, we have seen those results. So there is an argument for that with our water bath protocols that we did share in episode 2. So we're glad you're having a good response with that. And thank you for watching, and thank you for doing the foot bath.
Yeah, definitely. He had sent me a picture just I think it was last week. He had sent me a picture of him doing the foot bath, and he was doing it for low back, kind of same setup that you and I both do as well. So I knew this was going to be a good episode for him to tune into. He used the foot bath this past weekend for something not low back related, but just another plug to go watch that episode 2 that we have out there. See all the different benefits that you can have with using the water bath protocol.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for the shout out, Chris. Thanks for joining in. We have time for one more. I got an interesting one here. Probably won't stump you, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. So I'm curious how we're going to answer this. What is the strategy for bringing up your competitors all the time? It's helpful since I own a Flex Doctor, which we have back here, and I've been learning a lot more about how to use it. So thanks for the free education. Well, you're welcome. Jason, you want to answer first, and then I'll piggyback off of you.
Yeah, and I mean, you are our director of training, so don't want to speak for us, but I know we're both on the same mindset here, is that it's really just about direct current overall. Yes, we represent NerveOTX, we represent the DX500 and the RX100, but in a more encapsulating theme, we represent direct current, and direct current is what we're trying to bring to the forefront. We think it's still too secretive. So regardless if you've got a DX500, if you've got a newbie, if you've got an NX Pro, we're just happy that you're using direct current. And if there are questions that we can help with, we'd be remiss not to help with those questions. So I think that's kind of some of the, I guess, strategy, or more or less just why we use, other videos and content from other, direct current companies just as much as us, is because they also have great mindsets, great ideas that usually align with what we're doing. We just want to get it out to the masses. That's why Jake and I are here.
Don't have much to add after that. It was kind of
all right.
I appreciate your question, Billy Bean. By the way, I like your name, Billy. Are you the Billy Bean? Do you know Billy Bean from the Athletics, the manager?
Absolutely.
Billy Bean?
Money ball, baby.
Come on. That's a perfect name. I love the question. Thanks for joining.
Hey, they're coming back.
You're getting education from us. That was kind of the idea. And Mason is correct. We don't really consider other direct current companies direct competition to us. We consider them allies against a bigger cause, or for a bigger cause, so that we can get it out there everywhere. There's nothing against the TENS unit and other things that go on alternating current. It's just that we know how much better the direct current works. So our competitors, they're out there, but we're out there to try to get it out to you guys, so we can just make you better. And education is truly where we thrive on that. So good questions. We appreciate all the people that are joining in. If we missed your questions today, I apologize. Some of the technical issues kind of slowed us down a little bit, but make sure you leave in the comment section outside of the live video, because we always have a tendency to pull them back, and we'll probably pull it in if it's a good question in a future Tech Talks video, especially if it's a good one to stump the trainer. But for now, that closes the current checks.
Current check, let's go. Questions live, now we're in the flow. We bring the spark, we bring the tech. Tech Talks live, it's the current check.
Mason, what's your favorite music?
Oh, my favorite music overall. I'm a hip hop guy. I like a little bop, a little bit of motion. We always say movement is medicine, so I've got to be able to have a little bit of movement with my music.
Perfect. You like to move. You like to move to the groove.
Absolutely. I'm heading to a wedding this weekend, so I'm going to be able to kind of exemplify that, and we're going to be moving and grooving on Saturday.
Oh, you're going to bust a move. You're going to post some video on it, and it's going to make magic moments next Tech Talk. That's what I'm hearing.
It just might. I don't know. You might have to. I know you might have to talk to the family and friends around. They'll probably snap a video of me.
I can't wait. And the fact that you love to move to music is perfect, because that brings up our next segment. And we want to shift to another case file by the name of DJ Spinderella. Do you know who that is?
Oh, absolutely, I do. And people might claim that I don't because of age or whatever it may be. No, absolutely, I do. When you're a legend, everybody knows.
Yeah, I agree. Legendary DJ Spinderella from Salt and Pepper. So if you're familiar with that group, Salt and Pepper, Push It was the song. Shoop was a song. DJ Spinderella actually wrote Shoop, if I'm correct. But here's the thing about that. She uses direct current therapy, which is pretty cool, because when someone who has spent their career performing, traveling, standing, moving, keeping the beat, which sometimes can be debilitating as well, and then says something like, this is the only thing that helped, that gets our attention. And sometimes the body just needs the right current to get back into the rhythm. And who knows rhythm better than a DJ that was recently inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Here's our spotlight, DJ Spinderella. Enjoy. Inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, this is DJ Spinderella.
She said, I can help you. And I said, I've heard that before. I've been to chiropractors. I've been to, specialists, and they do maintain pain and manage pain. But, something about her and what she was explaining to me, which she probably could tell you better, exactly what it is. She brought me in and started doing these exercises with me. I have been experiencing the lightness of the movement, like flexibility. So after I've visited her a few times, I noticed the change and the flexibility in my body, especially in my shoulders.
So that alone, just flexibility, and has become a big fan of this technology ever since. And that was Carrie L on here who kind of introduced it to her. Our CEO, Matt Dell. That was the Rewired podcast. But again, so Mason, let me ask you a question on range of motion. Mm-hmm. Can you get some benefits even with low back by just simply increasing range of motion?
Absolutely. I think you can get a ton of benefits from increasing range of motion, because like we talked about, range of motion, it's some sort of blockage, whether it's from a muscle or from a joint. A lot of the times, though, it is coming from a muscle in the softer tissues. So if we can get those to loosen up and get a better end range of motion throughout those movements, we're usually not compensating as much. We're usually not feeling those tightnesses and those pains that come from that. So if you're using this to loosen muscles up too, you're usually going to help benefit your low back if you have issues there.
Well, there you go. That alone, just for range of motion, would be good. But there's just so many different variables you can use this for. We're not saying we're not trying to say it does everything and cures everything, but definitely a place in everybody's life, like the toaster. Well, unless you don't eat bread or something like that, but you get my point. All right, let's move on. Before we look ahead, let's rewind the tape a little bit. Last week, we talked about muscle being the new retirement plan. And if you missed it, your future self might already be disappointed in you, because, Mason, this device can actually build muscle. Is that correct?
I get that question all the time. You get that question more often than I do, probably. Yeah, it does. It's one of the main skepticisms about this is I can really build muscle using electricity that I'm sending into my body. Absolutely, you can. We're getting those muscles to contract. We're getting those motor neurons to fire. And I'm going to stop there. You're going to have to tune into last week's episode if you want to hear more about that, because we've got a great conversation on how you can do that.
That was a perfect promo speech. You cut it off right at the right spot. Yeah, if you missed it, you didn't miss out, because it's still back up there. You got an edited version. If you want to watch the full live version, it's also there as well. But you don't want to miss this one. Muscle is your retirement plan. You can build muscle doing this. Next week, you don't want to miss this one. Save it in your calendar, because we're opening a brand new case file. We can't reveal everything yet, obviously, but let's just say your body may have been hiding another clue in plain sight. And we call this lost signal: why soccer players keep pulling hamstrings and rolling ankles. That's going to be an interesting one. And Mason, while we're kind of on the subject, other than the U.S., who's your World Cup pick?
I gotta go with Spain, man. I'm a big Yamal guy. I mean, young stud. He's 17. I think he's 18 now, but he is just unreal. And then they've got 2 or 3 more guys just like him. So I think I'm gonna have to go with Spain. I will say though, France looked pretty solid the other evening, so I think they could be a really good, strong contender too.
Yeah.
What about you?
The top 2 talking about it. I'm a Messi fan. I like him.
Yeah.
I'm going for Argentina. I think they're kind of the underdogs for the most part, even though, they have a good name, but they're playing well. I thought Messi looked good. So if it's not the US pulling this unbelievable upset, then it's going to be Argentina.
Man, Messi looked great. I mean, you've got arguably the GOAT going out and in his first game of his last World Cup going out and doing a hat trick. That was great. I can't wait to see what else happens in the next 7 days that we're going to have to talk about next week, because the World Cup moves so fast. So I'm excited.
It does. It moves fast. I've really gotten into it this year, maybe because nothing else is on, and I'm like, this is pretty cool. And the games all feel like they're playoff games, so it's kind of cool. I love seeing the energy. It's neat to see him in U.S. stadiums. Always cool to see the world get together like that. So if you get a chance next week, you don't want to miss this. And by the way, you don't have to play soccer. We're going to talk about hamstring issues and ankles like everything else. But these are common breakdowns for soccer players, and it's a good time to kind of focus in on that. But make sure you save the date once again for next week. Tech Talks every Thursday, 12 p.m. We got one final thing. We got something coming up. But who's your hero in life?
Hero in life, somebody that is just consistently taking care of the family. It'd have to be both of my parents. Would be my heroes for sure.
That's definitely the truth in my case as well. And the beauty of this is because of that, they're often considered the quiet heroes, in my opinion. The ones who show up tired, carry more than they say, the sacrifices where they sacrifice pieces of themselves to their families, and so their families can keep moving forward. This day is just a reminder that the men who train, work, provide, protect, and pour everything into everyone else and their family around them, well, they also deserve a little recognition. And today we're going to honor that man. Happy Father's Day, Dad, and to all those dads out there. And in a world where the only thing they give is everything they have, well, then perhaps how about a little discount on a DX500, a gift that will keep giving time and again, where you can contract muscles and build muscle, or you can take and help your dad take them out of pain. So there it is.
I'm glad we're running this. It's just something, I think you summed it up great, Jake. I mean, they're more often than not the ones that do the most and complain the least. So what better way to kind of help support them than help support the body that supports them. So
correct. So if your dad was looking at it, or anybody who is a dad that was looking at this and you know about it, we're offering 30% off. If that's a gift you want to get them, there you go. The Father's Day discount we're doing there. Again, as we're closing up, make sure, so you can continue to enjoy these videos, make sure you like, you subscribe, hit that little bell notification. I always say that because you hit the bell, it'll notify you every time we post a video. You could also get involved in live if you want to ask questions. And so it'll continue keeping you involved in all the education that we are pushing. Case closed, maybe, or maybe it's half closed.
Maybe, possibly. Yeah, it's never closed, I feel like, but I think that we've got a really, really good trail blazed to kind of get down to the nitty gritty. I don't think there will be as much investigative work from here on out to try to figure out who the real suspect is that's causing this crime of back pain that continues to scream and yell at us.
Any final thoughts, Mason?
I think this final is, there you go. Yeah, exactly. We have to keep our workplace names when we're here in the workplace breaking down these case files. So biggest final thought from me is, if there's one thing that I want people to take away from today's episode, it's this. It's that pain deserves attention, but it also deserves a little bit of investigation. So when your back hurts, it's easy to just sit there and blame the back because that's where the pain is the loudest. But loud doesn't always mean that it's guilty. Sometimes the back is taking the stress because, as we talked about, the hips aren't moving well, or the glutes aren't contributing, the core isn't coordinating that movement, or more often than not, the nervous system is just stuck in this protection mode. So don't just chase that pain that's there. Ask better questions. Look at the whole system from a holistic standpoint, because when you start to find the real driver, the body has a chance to get out of that protection mode and start to perform much better like it does and like it used to.
And Sherlock Mason finishes with an exclamation point. That's the big takeaway. But I did pick Columbo, and the famous words of Mr. Old Columbo, the popular Hollywood detective, he once said, just one more thing. Your back pain might be loud. It might be dramatic. It might walk into a room wearing a trench coat, smoking a cigar, and pointing at itself like, yep, I did it. But that doesn't mean the case is closed. Pain is real, but pain does not always tell the whole truth, as we've discussed. And if you've been stretching the same spot, massaging the same area, doing the same routine, and getting the same results, then maybe it's time to stop blaming the obvious suspect and start looking for the source, because your back may not be the criminal. It may truly be the fall guy. So follow the clues, investigate the system, and don't let the loudest symptom write the entire story. We'll see you in the next tech.
At NerveOTX, our mission is simple: to provide the tools that help people move better, heal faster, and perform at their best through advanced direct current technology. From professional athletes to clinical providers, NerveOTX delivers systems that target the source of pain, not just the symptoms. Inside our training portal, you'll find setup guides, pad placements, and performance protocols trusted by top clinicians and coaches. Because when it comes to DC education, we set the standard. And when you need help, our customer support and training team is always just a click away at NerveOTX.com. And make sure you check out our new DX500 with the same power, precision, and performance of our full-size systems in a device that fits in the palm of your hand.